Grandpa, Mommy, and Daddy are going to take your money after the party today. My 8-year-old granddaughter whispered, her little voice slicing through me like thunder. In that instant, the illusion of family love shattered into pieces. I, a grandfather who had trusted too much and given too freely, hid my shock behind a mask of fatigue and left the celebration early. But behind that quiet retreat, a storm was already brewing. They thought I was weak. They thought I would sign away my life's work without a fight. What they never expected was the trap I was about to set, a plan so precise it would expose their betrayal in front of witnesses they could not deceive. I beat them at their own game, and what came next they will never forget. Before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We bring you new stories every day. Hit like and let us know what city you're watching from in the comments. I know what you are thinking, Dad, but hear me out. Harry's voice cracked through the phone, cutting through the Saturday morning silence, jagged like a rusty blade that had not been sharpened in years. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. 7 a.m. calls were not Harry's style, especially not with that nervous tremor I recognized from his teenage years when he had once wrecked my truck. What sounds strange, son? I settled back into my kitchen chair, watching steam rise slowly from my coffee while morning light painted golden squares across yesterday's still unread newspaper. Well, Mary really wants, we both think you should definitely come to Alexa's birthday party today. The words tumbled out too fast, like he had rehearsed them carefully but forgotten the rhythm at the last second. Something cold settled in my chest. Since when did they need to convince me to see my granddaughter Harry? When have I ever missed one of Alexa's birthdays? No, that is not what I meant. A pause. I heard what sounded like Mary's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. It is just that Mary's been planning this for weeks, and she specifically asked me to call and make sure you are coming. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl into tiny hurricanes. Mary specifically asking, the same Mary who usually treated my presence like a necessary inconvenience. That is thoughtful of her. Yeah, she is really excited about it. Harry's laugh sounded forced metallic. The party starts at 2, but maybe you could come a little early. We wanted to talk about some family stuff. The spoon clinked against the mug as I set it down. Family stuff. In 3 years of widowhood, family stuff had never required secret conversations. What kind of family stuff? Oh, just planning things, future things. Mary has some ideas about how we can all be more involved with each other. I walked to the window, phone pressed to my ear, watching Dorothy Henderson across the street water her flower boxes. Mary with ideas about family involvement, the woman who had spent Christmas dinner last year, checking her phone every 5 minutes. That sounds nice, Harry. I kept my voice level, but my businessman's instincts were screaming. 30 years of reading people across conference tables had taught me when someone was selling something they did not believe in themselves. Great. So you will be there early, maybe around 1:30. I glanced at the refrigerator where Alexa's latest drawing hung next to my shopping list. A crooked house with stick figures labeled Grandpa, Daddy, Mommy, and Me in purple crayon. That little girl was the brightest spot in my world since Ellen died. Of course, I will be there early. I would not miss Alexa's day for anything. Perfect. And Dad, Harry's voice dropped lower. Just keep an open mind about what we want to discuss. Okay, it is all about making sure everyone is taken care of. The line went dead before I could ask what he meant by everyone being taken care of. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then set it on the counter next to my untouched newspaper. Something was not right. Harry's voice had carried that same guilty undertone I remembered from when he was 8 and had borrowed money from Ellen's purse for candy. But this felt bigger than childhood mischief. I poured fresh coffee and tried to shake off the unease. Maybe Mary genuinely wanted to improve family relationships. Maybe I was reading too much into a simple invitation. But as I sat back down with my coffee, I could not stop thinking about that phrase, making sure everyone is taken care of. In my experience, when people started talking about taking care of everyone, they usually meant taking care of themselves first. I looked at Alexa's drawing again and smiled despite my lingering concerns. Whatever Harry and Mary had planned to discuss, it could surely wait until after I had celebrated my granddaughter's 8th birthday. Some things in life were far more important than adult complications and hidden agendas. Still, I made a mental note to listen carefully to whatever they wanted to talk about. 20 minutes later, I stood in my bedroom closet staring at shirts Ellen would never see me wear again. The blue Oxford brought back her funeral. How Mary had whispered about all this space while we buried my wife. Even then, something in her tone had felt calculating and oddly cold. I pulled the shirt from its hanger and caught my reflection in the mirror. $70,000. That is what I had given them over the past 3 years. Mortgage payments, car loans. Alexa's private school tuition. Ellen would have called it excessive, but she would also have understood that Alexa deserved better than what her parents could provide on their own. My wallet sat heavy in my back pocket as I dressed slowly. 3 credit cards maxed out for Harry's emergencies, the urgent transmission repair that somehow turned into a full engine rebuild. Mary's temporary need for grocery money that quietly became a monthly expectation. Each request delivered with Harry's shame-faced explanations and Mary's perfectly timed gratitude that always seemed rehearsed. Walking to the kitchen for my keys, I passed the refrigerator where Alexa's latest drawing hung beside my grocery list. She had drawn our last fishing trip, 2 stick figures by a blue crayon lake, both smiling. Best day ever, Grandpa. Written in purple marker along the bottom. That was when Mary's recent suggestion hit me with fresh clarity. 3 weeks ago, standing in this exact spot, she had looked around my kitchen and said, "Norman, do not you think this house is getting too big for you? There are lovely assisted living communities where you would not have to worry about maintenance." Harry had quickly changed the subject to Alexa's softball season, but Mary's eyes had lingered on my granite countertops, the expensive appliances Ellen and I had chosen together, the same calculating look she had worn at the funeral. I grabbed my car keys from the counter, remembering Ellen's last coherent words. "Promise me you will always take care of Alexa, but watch Harry carefully. He is weak, and weak people make dangerous choices when someone strong is whispering in their ear." At the time, I had thought she meant his drinking buddies or get-rich-quick schemes. Now I wondered if Ellen had seen something in Mary that I had missed, the way she had started every conversation about money with Alexa's needs, making me feel selfish for questioning the expenses. The garage door opener hummed as morning light streamed across my Mercedes. Ellen's car still sat in her spot, covered and pristine. I had kept making payments on it for months after her death, unable to admit she was really gone. Maybe that was exactly what they were counting on, my inability to say no when it came to family. The grandfather who would rather pay than disappoint, who would rather trust than investigate. But 40 years in construction had taught me to check foundations carefully before building anything important. I backed out of the driveway, slowly watching my house shrink in the rearview mirror until it looked no bigger than a toy. By tonight, after whatever conversation Harry and Mary had planned, I suspected I would see everything differently. For now, I needed to buy my granddaughter a birthday present, something truly special, perhaps the last gift I would give her, before everything changed. Northtown Mall buzzed with Saturday morning energy as I parked near the main entrance. 8:15 and already families were streaming steadily toward the toy stores. Perfect timing for Alexa's gifts. The Lego architecture section drew me almost immediately. Alexa had been fascinated by buildings ever since her school field trip to the Space Needle last month. The Statue of Liberty set caught my eye, detailed enough to challenge her growing skills, but not so overwhelming as to frustrate her. $180 seemed reasonable for something that would occupy her curious mind for weeks. "Excellent choice, sir." The young clerk smiled politely as he rang up my purchase. "My daughter loves this series. Would you like gift wrapping? Please, it is for my granddaughter's 8th birthday. Next stop, sporting goods. Alexa had mentioned wanting a real bicycle, not the tiny pink one she had already outgrown. The Trek model displayed near the window looked perfect. Lightweight frame, hand brakes, she could manage reflective strips for safety. $320, but her delighted face would be worth every penny. Loading the bicycle box into my SUV, I checked my watch. 9:10. Plenty of time for one more stop. Norman, what a lovely surprise. Dorothy Henderson materialized beside my car, clutching a shopping bag from the bookstore. My neighbor of 15 years looked genuinely pleased to see me, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. "Dorothy, good morning, starting your weekend shopping early." "Oh, you know me, I like beating the crowds." She gestured toward the mall entrance. "Though I suppose you are here for birthday preparations." Harry mentioned Alexa's party when I saw him last week. "He mentioned it." I closed the SUV's rear hatch, curious. "Where did you run into him?" "Downtown, actually. Tuesday morning, I think it was. Mary was with him and they were coming out of First National Bank with quite a stack of papers." Dorothy chuckled. "Looked very official and serious. Probably refinancing something the way young people do these days." Tuesday. 4 days ago. Harry had not mentioned any banking business during his nervous phone call this morning. But then again, why would he? People handled financial matters all the time without broadcasting details. "Probably just routine business," I said, shifting my shopping bags to my other hand. "Of course, dear, none of my concern anyway." Dorothy patted my arm affectionately. "Well, I'd better let you finish your shopping. Give my love to that sweet granddaughter of yours." She bustled away toward the bookstore, leaving me standing beside my car with a vague sense of unease. Banking business on Tuesday, nervous phone call on Saturday. The timing felt oddly coincidental, but then again, Harry always seemed to be juggling some financial crisis or another. I shook off the feeling and headed toward the florist shop near the mall's east entrance. Mary had always appreciated flowers, and white roses would make a thoughtful gesture for the hostess of Alexa's party. The florist, a middle-aged woman with dirt under her fingernails, wrapped a dozen long-stemmed roses in silver paper with practiced efficiency. "These are beautiful," she said, adjusting the ribbon. "Special occasion. My granddaughter's birthday party. They are for her mother." How thoughtful. She will love them. $28 for flowers that would wilt in a week, but Mary's pleased expression would be worth the expense. These small gestures mattered in maintaining family harmony, especially when underlying tensions existed. By 9:30, my SUV was loaded with packages that represented nearly $600 of birthday celebration. The Lego set, the bicycle, the roses, and the card I had carefully selected, each item chosen with Alexa's happiness foremost in mind. This was what grandfathers did. They spoiled their grandchildren shamelessly and enjoyed every single moment of it. Driving home through Saturday morning traffic, I found myself circling back to Dorothy's casual observation. Harry and Mary at the bank with papers, serious expressions, official business that Harry had not bothered mentioning. But then again, married couples handled countless administrative tasks without involving extended family. Insurance updates, mortgage refinancing, college savings accounts for Alexa. Any number of entirely legitimate reasons could explain their downtown visit. Still, as I turned into my driveway, I could not quite dismiss the small voice in my head that wondered why Harry had sounded so nervous this morning, if everything was truly as routine as it appeared. After wrapping Alexa's gifts and grabbing a quick lunch, I arrived at Harry's house precisely at 2 o'clock. The front door opened before I could even ring the bell. "Norman?" Mary practically sang my name, her arms spreading wide as if we had not seen each other in months rather than mere weeks. "You look absolutely wonderful today." This sudden enthusiasm felt foreign. Mary usually offered a polite smile and quick hug before disappearing into her kitchen duties. Today she touched my arm twice while speaking, her eyes bright with an energy I had never seen directed at me before. "Thank you, Mary. The party looks lovely." I stepped inside, carrying the wrapped bicycle box and the gift bag containing the Lego set. Colourful streamers hung from every doorway and balloon clusters filled each corner, far more elaborate than previous birthday celebrations. "Dad, there he is." Harry appeared from the living room, his voice carrying across the house like a carnival barker's. "Come meet Mike from work. Mike, this is my amazing father I have told you so much about." Amazing father? Harry's workplace conversations about me typically focused on my old-fashioned business methods or my stubbornness about retirement. But today, he clapped my shoulder with theatrical enthusiasm, his laugh echoing too loudly in the decorated hallway. The living room buzzed with familiar faces. The Johnsons from next door chatted near the fireplace, while Mrs. Smith sat carefully on the couch, observing everything with sharp eyes. Carlos and Elena Martinez helped their son Tommy arrange party games on the coffee table. "Grandpa?" Alexa ran toward me, her genuine smile cutting through the artificial atmosphere like sunlight. She wrapped her arms around my waist, and for a brief moment the world felt normal again. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." I handed her the gift bag. "This one first, then the big surprise." She unwrapped the Lego architecture set with careful fingers, her eyes widening at the Statue of Liberty image on the box. But when she looked up to thank me, something flickered across her face. A shadow of sadness that vanished when Mary approached. "Is not Grandpa generous, honey? Say thank you properly." "Thank you, Grandpa. It is really cool." Alexa's voice carried genuine appreciation mixed with something else, guilt, worry. An 8-year-old should not sound so burdened during her own birthday party. Harry guided me toward the kitchen where Mike Davidson nursed a beer and made small talk about car sales. The conversation flowed normally enough, but Harry kept interjecting with unnecessary compliments about my business wisdom and family leadership. Each comment felt rehearsed, like lines from a script he had memorized poorly. "Norman knows everything about building successful relationships," Harry announced proudly to Mike. "He has taught me so much about trust and family loyalty." Trust and family loyalty. Strange topics for a casual party conversation, especially delivered with Harry's current manic intensity. Mike nodded politely, clearly uncomfortable with Harry's excessive praise of his own father. Mary reappeared with a plate of appetizers, positioning herself between me and the other guests. "Norman, you simply must try these canapes. I made them especially thinking of your sophisticated tastes." My sophisticated taste. Mary had never paid attention to my food preferences, beyond ensuring adequate quantities appeared at family gatherings. Now she hovered beside me, refilling my wineglass, before it emptied and asking about my comfort level every few minutes. From across the room, I watched Alexa opening cards from school friends. Her movement seemed mechanical, polite, but distant. When Tommy Martinez asked about her new Lego set, she nodded and smiled appropriately, but her responses lacked the genuine excitement I had expected. "She is growing up so fast," Mrs. Smith observed, settling beside me on the couch. "Such a thoughtful child. She asked me last week if grandparents and parents ever disagree about important decisions." My wineglass paused halfway to my lips. "What did you tell her?" "That families work through differences with love and honesty." Mrs. Smith studied Alexa with concerned eyes, though she seemed troubled by something beyond normal childhood worries. Across the room, Harry and Mary exchanged a quick glance, the kind of wordless communication that suggested coordination. They had been doing that all afternoon, I realized. Brief eye contact, subtle nods, perfectly timed interruptions. When conversations approached certain topics, the afternoon stretched on with forced merriment and careful choreography. Every smile felt calculated, every laugh slightly too loud, every gesture of family affection performed for an audience. Only Alexa's behavior toward me remained authentic, though shadowed by whatever burden she carried, as the party wound toward its conclusion and guests began gathering their belongings. Harry caught my attention with an overly casual gesture. "Dad, stick around after everyone leaves, okay? Mary and I have been looking forward to that family chat we mentioned." The artificial cheerfulness began weighing on me like humidity before a storm. I excused myself with a polite smile, mentioning the bathroom down the hallway. Mary jumped up immediately, offering directions I did not need her concern, feeling rehearsed rather than genuine. Walking away from the party noise, I noticed Alexa watching me from beside the gift table. Something in her expression, worry mixed with determination, made me pause. When I reached the hallway lined with family photos, small footsteps followed softly behind me. "Grandpa." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I turned to find her glancing back toward the living room, ensuring we were alone. The birthday girl, who should have been glowing with excitement, looked instead like she carried the weight of the world on 8-year-old shoulders. "What is it, sweetheart?" I knelt to her eye level, recognizing the serious expression she had inherited from Ellen. "You look troubled." She bit her lower lip, a gesture that reminded me painfully of her grandmother during difficult conversations. "I need to tell you something important about Mom and Dad." My chest tightened. "What about them, honey? They are planning to take your money tonight." The words tumbled out in a rush, as if she had been rehearsing them carefully. After everyone goes home, I heard them talking last night when I was supposed to be sleeping. The hallway seemed to tilt slightly. I gripped the door frame to steady myself, fighting to keep my expression calm for Alexa's sake. What exactly did you hear? Mom said, you have too much money for an old man living alone. Alexa's voice dropped even lower, trembling with fear. She told Dad they were going to fix that problem tonight. Dad seemed scared, but Mom said the papers from the bank would make everything legal. Papers from the bank. Tuesday's visit that Dorothy Henderson had mentioned suddenly made terrible sense. My business instincts, dormant for years, roared back to life with crystalline clarity and an edge I had not felt in decades. Did they say anything else? I asked gently, though my mind raced with implications I hoped an 8-year-old could not begin to understand. Dad kept saying, what if he finds out? And Mum replied that it would be too late by then. Tears welled in Alexa's eyes. Grandpa, I do not want them to take your money. You are the only one who really listens to me. I pulled her into a fierce hug, feeling her small body trembling tightly against mine. Ellen's granddaughter carrying adult secrets that no child should ever bear. The betrayal cut deeper knowing they had planned this within earshot of such innocent ears. Listen to me carefully, I whispered into her hair. You did the right thing telling me, but we need to keep this our secret for now. Okay, can you do that? She nodded against my shoulder. Are you going to stop them? Yes, sweetheart. I am going to handle everything. I held her at arm's length, making sure she could see the certainty in my eyes. But we need to go back to your party now and act completely normal. Can you be brave for me? I think so. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Will you still love me if Mom and Dad get mad? The question hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Alexa, nothing your parents do could ever change how much I love you. Nothing. Do you understand? Relief flooded her face, the first genuine smile I had seen from her all afternoon. I love you too, Grandpa. Hand in hand, we walked slowly back toward the party sounds, but everything had shifted in those few whispered minutes. The son I had raised, the daughter-in-law I had supported, the family I had trusted with my heart, all of it now viewed through the lens of calculated betrayal. As we rejoined the celebration, I caught Harry's eyes across the room. He smiled and waved the same false enthusiasm that had puzzled me earlier. Now I understood exactly what that performance was designed to accomplish. Returning to the party felt like walking onto a stage where everyone else had forgotten they were acting. I settled back into conversations with the natural ease that 40 years of business negotiations had taught me. While internally cataloguing every glance between Harry and Mary with devastating new clarity, Mrs. Smith was discussing her garden when I noticed Harry checking his watch for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Mary appeared beside him immediately, their brief eye contact now obviously coordinated rather than coincidental. They were managing me, I realized, ensuring I stayed comfortable, engaged, and most importantly present for whatever they had planned after the guests departed. Norman, how about some more wine? Mary's hand touched my arm with practiced concern. You look a bit pale. Are you feeling all right? Pale? Yes, I probably was. Learning that your family planned to steal your life's work might do that to a person. But I managed a tired smile that was not entirely manufactured. Just a slight headache, but I am fine. Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, the kind of micro-expression I had learned to read in boardroom adversaries, relief mixed with calculation. A tired, slightly unwell grandfather would be easier to manipulate than an alert one. For the next hour, I played my part perfectly. Gracious grandfather, generous family patriarch, aging man perhaps not quite as sharp as he once was. I accepted their attentions, praised their hospitality, and observed their increasingly obvious coordination with the detached interest of studying a chess opponent's strategy. Harry kept steering conversations away from financial topics. What would you do if your own family tried to control every detail of your life under the disguise of care? Comment number 1. If you've ever felt managed instead of respected by loved ones. Whenever guests mentioned the economy or retirement planning, Mary redirected discussions about my house, my health, my future living arrangements. They were managing the information flow, ensuring nothing conflicted with whatever narrative they had constructed for tonight's important family discussion. Around 5:30, as afternoon shadows lengthened and guests began collecting their belongings, I announced my intention to leave. I think I should head home early. This headache is not improving. The effect was immediate. Harry and Mary exchanged a look of genuine alarm. Dad, wait. Harry moved to block my path to the door. We really wanted to talk about those important family matters we mentioned. Remember, you promised to stay after everyone left. Perhaps another time, I said, maintaining the weary grandfather persona. I really need to rest. But Norman... Mary stepped closer, her voice taking on urgent undertones. We have something special planned for tonight. Something we have been preparing for weeks. Something they had been preparing for weeks. The bank visit Dorothy Henderson witnessed. Legal documents, plans that required my presence and cooperation. I could see the desperation creeping into their performance as their carefully orchestrated timeline threatened to collapse. I am sure it can wait until tomorrow, I replied gently. Family is not going anywhere. Harry's face flushed. Actually, Dad, there are some time-sensitive issues we need to discuss. Financial matters that cannot wait. Financial matters that cannot wait. How interesting that Harry would phrase it exactly that way. I filed the comment away with all the other intelligence I had gathered throughout this surreal afternoon. Tomorrow, son, I promise. I turned toward Alexa, who had been watching our exchange with worried eyes. Kneeling to her level, I pulled her into what might be our last innocent embrace before everything changed. Thank you for the most wonderful birthday party, sweetheart. Thank you for my presents, Grandpa. Her small arms tightened around my neck. I love you so much. I love you too, more than you will ever know. I whispered against her ear, quiet enough that only she could hear. Everything will be okay. Standing, I felt Harry's hand on my shoulder, heavier than necessary, almost restraining. Dad, please just give us an hour. 1 hour to discuss these important family decisions. I looked into my son's eyes and saw not the boy I had raised, but a desperate man whose greed had overwhelmed whatever love remained. The realization cut deeper than I'd expected, but my voice remained steady. Another time, Harry, I need to go home now. Walking to my car while they watched silently from the doorway, Mary whispering urgently in Harry's ear, both of them radiating frustrated tension that clung to the air. I felt the weight of performance finally lifting from my shoulders. Alone in my Mercedes, I sat for a long moment in their driveway, processing the sheer magnitude of what had just occurred. My own family had planned to rob me tonight with legal documents and careful preparation designed to strip me of everything. Starting the engine, I pulled away from the house where I had celebrated what might be my last normal family gathering. Inside my home, the silence felt different than it had that same morning. No longer peaceful, it was pregnant with grim purpose. I walked directly to my home office, the very room where I had built my construction business from a single truck and nothing but stubborn determination. 40 years of important documents lived inside the wall, secured safely behind Ellen's portrait as I spun the combination lock. Muscle memory from decades of business dealings guided my fingers. 18/19/59, Ellen's birthday. The irony was not lost on me that her memory would help me protect what we had built together. The documents told a story I had been too trusting to read properly until now. Bank statements revealing the pattern of financial requests that had escalated from mere hundreds to thousands over 3 relentless years. Investment portfolios worth far more than Harry or Mary ever realized. Property deeds for rental properties they did not even know existed. And most importantly, detailed records of every single payment I had made to support their chosen lifestyle. 247 individual transactions. I documented everything with the methodical precision that had once made my business successful. Mortgage payments, car repairs, medical bills, private school tuition for Alexa. Each payment had been justified by some family emergency or opportunity that had seemed reasonable at the time. Sitting at my desk with Ellen's photo, watching quietly from the bookshelf, I finally saw the manipulation with clarity. The escalating requests had been deliberate conditioning, training me step by step to say yes to increasingly larger amounts. Mary's suggestions about assisted living had never been concerned for my welfare. They were reconnaissance missions for tonight's planned theft. Every mortgage payment, every tuition check, I said aloud to Ellen's photograph. They have been planning this for months. My phone sat silent on the desk. Harry and Mary would be scrambling right now, trying to figure out how to proceed without me present for their so-called important family discussion. The thought gave me a grim satisfaction that almost felt like relief. Opening my business card file, I found James Miller's personal number. 20 years of friendship and professional respect with the Vice President of First National Bank. James would remember the careful, detail-oriented contractor who had never missed a payment or broken a promise. More importantly, he would understand exactly what legal documents obtained under false pretenses actually meant. The clock showed 9:30 p.m., too late for business calls, but I made a note for tomorrow morning. First priority, understanding exactly what papers Harry and Mary had obtained and how to neutralize their legal effectiveness. Next, I reviewed my will and trust documents, standard arrangements that left everything to Harry with provisions for Alexa's education and future written back when I still believed my son possessed integrity and love for his family rather than simply greed for our money. Those documents would need immediate revision. Catherine Davis had notarized most of my legal paperwork over the years, independent, discreet, and unconnected to any bank where Harry and Mary might have allies. Another call for tomorrow morning. Spreading the investment statements across my desk like battle plans, I calculated my actual net worth for the first time in years. 2.3 million in liquid assets plus 3 rental properties plus this house with no mortgage attached. Far more than Harry and Mary suspected, and certainly more than they could ever hope to steal in one evening's legal maneuvering. But this was not truly about money. This was about justice for an 8-year-old girl whose parents were willing to traumatize her with adult secrets. This was about punishment for adults who would exploit an elderly man's love for his family. This was about ensuring that betrayal came with consequences. Ellen's voice echoed clearly from our last conversation. Watch Harry carefully. Weak people make dangerous choices when someone strong is whispering in their ear. Now I understood in full. Mary had been whispering for 3 years, and Harry had chosen greed over family loyalty at every single turn. My phone rang suddenly, jarring me from planning. Harry's name appeared on the caller ID. I let it ring unanswered. Sunday morning brought clarity that a restless night had failed to provide. After finally falling asleep near dawn, I woke with my businessman's instincts fully engaged and a specific plan waiting for me. Over coffee in my home office, I opened my business contact file to James Miller's personal number. 9 o'clock seemed appropriate for calling an old friend about financial matters. James and I had maintained our friendship through 20 years of loans, investments, and the gradual success of price construction. He would trust a call from me, especially about portfolio management. "James, sorry to bother you on Sunday morning." I began when he answered. "I have been reviewing my investment portfolio and wanted to get your thoughts on some consolidation ideas." "Norman, always good to hear from you." His voice carried genuine warmth. "What is on your mind?" "I am considering simplifying my accounts, maybe centralizing everything for easier management." "What are current banking policies on financial assistance programs?" "Well, there are several options depending on your specific needs. Are you thinking about automated services or more comprehensive management assistance?" Perfect opening. "Actually, I have been wondering about power of attorney arrangements, conservatorship options. Had any clients dealing with those recently?" James paused, and I could almost hear him considering confidentiality boundaries. "Funny you should ask. Just last week, I had a couple inquiring about guardianship procedures for an elderly family member." My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. "Oh, complex process, I imagine." Actually, they seemed quite prepared. Had done considerable research on conservatorship requirements, documentation, timelines. Very thorough people. Very thorough. My son and daughter-in-law had researched exactly how to steal my independence with legal precision. That is thoughtful of them to help their family. They were asking specific questions about mental competency evaluations, financial management, documentation, timelines for court approval. James's professional knowledge was exactly what I needed at that moment. He understood the terminology better than most attorneys I had ever worked with. mental competency evaluations, court approval timelines. They had planned to have me declared incompetent and seize control of everything I had spent 40 years building with sweat and sacrifice. The scope of their betrayal kept expanding beyond what I had imagined possible. Did they seem confident about their situation? I asked carefully, measuring every word. Absolutely. They mentioned having documentation ready, medical opinions prepared, said they expected the process to move quickly once initiated. James chuckled softly. Most families are not nearly so organized when dealing with elderly care transitions. Elderly care transitions. The euphemism made my hands clench around the phone. They had researched how to institutionalize me while simultaneously stealing my wealth, and they had done it with systematic, professional thoroughness. Sounds like they really cared about their family members' welfare. I managed to reply evenly. That was what struck me most, how much preparation they had put into ensuring everything would appear legally proper and swift. They asked about expedited processes, emergency conservatorship procedures, emergency conservatorship for situations where immediate action was supposedly necessary to protect someone's assets from their own incompetence. Hearing my own situation described in clinical banking terms felt utterly surreal. Well, I appreciate the information, James. It gives me a much better sense of the available options. Any time, Norman. Though honestly, you seem sharper than men half your age. I cannot imagine you needing that kind of assistance for decades yet. If only he knew how close I had come to needing it yesterday. Let us hope you are right. Thanks for taking my call on Sunday. Always a pleasure. Let me know if you want to schedule a formal consultation about your portfolio. After hanging up, I sat staring at my notes from the conversation. Mental competency evaluations, documentation ready, medical opinions prepared, emergency procedures. Harry and Mary had not just planned to rob me. They had engineered a complete legal framework to justify stealing my life. The phone rang suddenly, startling me from my thoughts. Harry's name appeared on the caller ID again. This time I answered. Hello? I answered the phone with deliberate weariness, as if the effort of reaching across my desk required considerable energy. Dad, thank goodness. I was worried sick about you leaving early yesterday. Harry's voice carried what sounded like genuine concern, though I now recognized the cold calculation beneath it. Are you feeling all right? Oh, Harry. I let my voice trail off slightly, as if gathering thoughts had become difficult. I have been having these terrible headaches, hard to concentrate on anything. That does not sound good. Maybe we should have you checked by a doctor. Mary and I could drive you to the clinic this afternoon. Perfect. They were accelerating their timeline exactly as I had hoped after disrupting their original plan. That is very thoughtful of you both. I've been feeling so confused lately. Do not worry, Dad. We will take care of everything. We will be over in about an hour. Okay. After hanging up, I spent 30 full minutes preparing for the performance of my life. I mussed my hair slightly, put on an old cardigan that made me look frailer, and practiced the slower, more hesitant movements of genuine elderly confusion. When their car finally pulled into my driveway, I was ready. Norman, we brought some papers that might help with your situation, Mary announced as they settled into my living room. She had brought a leather portfolio that looked expensive and professional, the kind lawyers carried for important documents. Papers? I blinked at her with what I hoped appeared to be genuine bewilderment. What kind of papers? Harry leaned forward, his expression painfully earnest. Dad, we have been researching ways to help you manage things better. Your finances, medical decisions, that sort of thing. Manage, I am not sure I understand. I rubbed my temples as if the conversation itself was causing physical pain. Everything seems so complicated these days. Mary opened the portfolio with practiced efficiency. These documents would give us power of attorney to help with your banking bills, medical appointments. Think of it as having a reliable backup system. The forms looked professionally prepared, with highlighted sections clearly marked for my signature. Someone had invested serious money in legal consultation for this theft. I stared at the papers as if they contained incomprehensible hieroglyphics. It is all so overwhelming, I murmured. I used to understand these things better. That is exactly why we need to do this now, Mary pressed gently, before things get more confusing for you. Harry shifted uncomfortably. Dad, are you sure you are okay? You seem really different today. I looked at him with what I hoped was confused gratitude. Different, I do not feel different, just tired all the time. These headaches make it hard to think clearly. Mary and Harry exchanged a glance, the same coordinated communication I had noticed at the party, but now I understood its purpose. They were evaluating whether I was impaired enough to sign documents without fully understanding their implications. Norman, these papers would just make it easier for us to help you, Mary continued. You would not have to worry about managing everything completely alone. I suppose that would be nice, I said slowly, picking up one of the documents with trembling hands. But this is such a big decision. My head is pounding trying to think it through. Of course it is a big decision, Harry said quickly. Take your time. Mary's patience looked more strained, though. Do not you think it would be easier with family help? You trust us. Do not you? Of course I trust you. You are my family. I set the papers down carefully. But could I maybe sleep on it? Decide tomorrow when I am thinking clearer. These headaches make everything feel so fuzzy. Harry and Mary looked at each other again, and I could see Mary's frustration barely contained beneath her carefully crafted, caring facade. Sure, Dad. We will come by tomorrow morning, and you can sign them then. After they left, I allowed myself to slump back in my chair, dropping the performance for the first time in hours. The documents they had left behind told the complete story. Power of attorney forms that would give them control over my finances, medical decisions, and living arrangements. Everything James had warned me about laid out in legal language designed to steal my very life. 3 hours later, I sat in my home office reviewing my notes from Harry and Mary's visit like a general planning a campaign. Their power of attorney documents lay spread across my desk, professional forms that would have given them complete control over my finances, medical decisions, and living arrangements. Every signature line highlighted in yellow, every witness requirement meticulously marked. They had certainly done their homework, but they had forgotten I had spent 40 years doing mine. Catherine Davis answered on the second ring. Norman, good evening. What can I do for you? Catherine, I need notary services tomorrow morning for some family financial documents. Could you come to my house around 10 o'clock? Of course. What type of documents are we dealing with? I chose my words very carefully. Power of attorney forms. It might be a somewhat sensitive family matter, so I would greatly appreciate your professional discretion. You know you can count on that. I will bring my seal and journal. Perfect. Catherine had notarized dozens of contracts for my construction business over the years. She would recognize irregular pressure tactics or coercion immediately. It was part of her professional training and her instinct. Next call, James Miller. James, could you stop by tomorrow morning around 10 o'clock? I have been thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I would like to review my portfolio in detail. Certainly, Norman. After what we discussed about financial management assistance, I think a thorough review would be wise. Excellent. It might be educational. James chuckled. I will bring the necessary paperwork. See you at 10. Educational indeed. James would witness whatever Harry and Mary planned to do, and as a bank vice president, he would understand exactly what he was seeing. More importantly, his presence would add legal weight to any documentation of their behavior. Final call, Harry. I let my voice carry the tremulous uncertainty I had performed that afternoon. Harry, I have been thinking about those papers you brought. You were right. I do need help managing things. Dad, that is wonderful. Mary will be so relieved. We can come over first thing tomorrow morning. I have arranged for a notary to make everything proper and legal. 10 o'clock sharp. Perfect. And Dad, thank you for trusting us with this. Trust. The word sat bitter in my mouth, but I managed to sound grateful. You are my family. Of course I trust you. After hanging up, I walked to the window overlooking my backyard. Ellen's rose garden needed attention, another task I had been managing alone since her death. Tomorrow would determine whether I continued managing it as a free man or watched it wither from some assisted living facility while Harry and Mary divided our life's work. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and wrote down the sequence of events I expected tomorrow. 9:45 a.m. Catherine arrives, sets up notary materials. 10 a.m. James arrives with portfolio documents. 10:05 a.m., Harry and Mary arrive expecting easy document signing. 10:10 a.m., professional witnesses observe their manipulation tactics. 10:15 a.m., truth emerges. The beautiful irony was not lost on me. They had researched how to steal my independence through legal procedures, but they had forgotten that legal procedures require proper witnesses and documentation. Tomorrow, those same requirements would expose their betrayal. 20 miles across town, Harry was probably explaining to Mary how cooperative I had sounded, how the notary would make everything official, how close they were to controlling millions of dollars. They would celebrate tonight confident that a confused old man had finally accepted their help. They had no idea they were walking straight into a trap, set by the same business mind that had built the very foundation of what they were now trying to steal. I looked at Alexa's drawing still hanging on my refrigerator, our stick figure family standing proudly beside a crooked house. Tomorrow would determine whether that little girl grew up with grandparents who protected her or with parents who taught her that family loyalty could be bought and sold like currency. Ellen's voice echoed from 3 years ago. Promise me you will always take care of Alexa. I fully intended to keep that promise. Monday morning arrived grey and cold. I had slept very little that night, but when Catherine arrived promptly at 9:45 with her notary seal and journal, I felt completely prepared. "Good morning, Norman. Beautiful home office," she said, arranging her materials neatly on the side table. "This should be straightforward." James knocked precisely at 10, carrying his banker's portfolio. "Morning, Norman. Ready for that portfolio review?" "More ready than you know," I replied, positioning myself firmly behind my desk as footsteps approached the front door. Harry and Mary entered with confident smiles and their leather document case. They paused briefly when they saw Catherine and James, but Mary recovered quickly. "How thoughtful of you to arrange professional assistance," she said smoothly. "This will make everything so much more official." "Indeed it will," I replied, my voice carrying none of yesterday's confused frailty. "Please, everyone take a seat." Harry settled into the chair across from my desk, still smiling. "Dad, you sound much better today, more like your old self." "Exactly like my old self, sharp, observant, capable." I leaned forward, meeting his eyes directly. "Which is why I need to tell you something before we sign any documents." Mary's pen stopped moving across her checklist. "Norman, what is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong with me, Mary, but I am completely aware of your plan." The silence stretched across the room like a taut wire. Harry's smile faltered. "Dad, what plan? We are here to help you." "I know about your visit to James's bank last Tuesday. I know about the guardianship procedures you researched. I know about the mental competency evaluations you plan to arrange." Harry's face drained of color. Mary's carefully controlled expression cracked for just a moment before she attempted damage control. "Norman, you are confused. We visited the bank about our own financial planning." "James," I interrupted, turning deliberately to my friend, "would you mind sharing what they discussed during their Tuesday afternoon appointment?" James cleared his throat with professional precision. "They asked detailed questions about conservatorship procedures, documentation requirements for declaring someone mentally incompetent, and expedited court processes for emergency financial management." Catherine looked up from her notary journal, suddenly alert. "Mr. Price, are you saying these power of attorney documents were prepared under false pretenses?" "I am saying they planned to have me declared incompetent so they could steal everything I have worked 40 years to build." Harry found his voice, though it came out strangled. "Dad, we were worried about you. Yesterday you seemed so confused. Yesterday I was performing. Today you are seeing who I really am." I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the documentation I'd carefully prepared. 247 transactions over 3 years. $70,000 in support payments. Every mortgage payment. Every car repair. Every private school tuition bill, all fully documented. Mary leaned forward, desperation creeping quickly into her voice. "Those were legitimate family expenses," I said coldly. "Conditioning payments, training me step by step to say yes to increasingly larger amounts until I had agreed to sign away my independence." I looked directly at Mary. "You researched exactly how to have me institutionalized while you divided my assets." Catherine set down her pen firmly. "This is highly irregular. I need to understand the full situation before notarizing anything. The full situation, I continued, is that my son and daughter-in-law spent weeks researching legal procedures to steal my money, consulted with lawyers about guardianship processes, and plan to have me declared mentally incompetent based on fabricated evidence of confusion. Harry's hands shook as he gripped the armrests of his chair. We just thought you might need help managing things. Help managing a net worth of $2.3 million plus 3 rental properties. My voice hardened like stone. Help that required consulting attorneys about emergency conservatorship procedures. Mary stood abruptly, her movements sharp. You are twisting everything. We love you. Love does not involve conspiracy, Mary. Love does not involve researching how to steal someone's independence while they are still healthy and competent. James spoke quietly. Norman, the questions they asked were very specific. They knew legal terminology that most families never encounter unless they are planning something significant. Catherine nodded grimly. In my experience, legitimate family financial planning does not require research into mental competency evaluations. The room fell silent, except for Harry's labored breathing. He looked at me with something approaching recognition, perhaps seeing for the very first time the businessman who had built the wealth they had just tried to steal. What happens now? He whispered. I stood feeling every year of my age, but also every ounce of my accumulated wisdom and hard-earned experience. Now we discuss consequences. Consequences. I repeated, opening my desk drawer to retrieve the legal documents I had prepared carefully over the weekend. I'm changing my will immediately. My estate will go into an educational trust for Alexa, accessible when she turns 21. Harry leaned forward desperately. Dad, please. We made mistakes, but we can fix this. The trust will provide for her college education, graduate school if she chooses, and startup funds for whatever career path she selects. I spread the new will documents across my desk. Catherine, I need these witnessed and notarized. Mary's voice cracked slightly. Norman, you cannot do this to your own family. I am protecting my family, I replied firmly, from parents who are willing to steal her grandfather's independence to fund their lifestyle. Catherine examined the documents with professional care. Mr. Price, these terms are quite specific. There are conditions attached. If Harry and Mary formally renounce all claims to my estate and demonstrate genuine change over the next year, I will reconsider, but they must prove they have become the parents Alexa deserves. James nodded approvingly as he witnessed my signature. The educational trust structure is excellent. She will have every opportunity you never got to provide directly. Harry buried his face in his hands. What does genuine change mean? How do we prove that by getting jobs that actually support your family instead of depending on me? By prioritizing Alexa's happiness over your own financial desires? By showing me that my granddaughter matters more to you than my bank account? Mary stood abruptly, her composure finally cracking completely. How are we supposed to live without your support? Harry asked, his voice carrying both fear and disbelief. The same way millions of other families do, I answered calmly. Through honest work and responsible spending. The mortgage assistance ends today. The car payments stop immediately. You are both adults with college degrees. Figure it out. Catherine finished notarizing the documents with the practiced efficiency of a professional who had seen countless families tested by conflict. Everything is legally binding now, she said firmly. Mr. Price, you should keep these in a secure location. My attorney will have copies by this afternoon, I assured her, my voice steady. When Catherine and James departed with handshakes and quiet promises of discretion, the house felt different. The three of us sat in an uncomfortable silence. Harry looked broken, like a boy who had finally realized the cost of his actions. Mary appeared, calculating, her eyes restless, already searching for a way forward. Is there anything else you want to say? I asked, the weight of truth pressing on every word. Harry met my eyes for the first time since the confrontation began. I am sorry, Dad. I know that does not fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry. Mary said nothing. Her silence revealed more than words ever could. Words are cheap, Harry. Actions over the next year will determine whether this family has a future together. 3 hours later, a gentle knock came at my door. Alexa stood there, her school backpack still hanging from her shoulders. Grandpa, Mommy said you wanted to see me. I knelt to her eye level, just as I had in the hallway 2 days earlier. Come sit with me, sweetheart. We need to talk about some grown-up things. She nestled beside me on the couch, her 8-year-old wisdom already sensing the seriousness of the moment. Is this about what I told you? Partly, I said softly. Your mummy and daddy made some bad choices about money, and there have to be consequences. But none of this changes how much I love you. Are they in trouble? She whispered. They have to learn to take better care of themselves and of you. But Alexa, I want you to know something important. Your future is completely safe. I have made special arrangements to make sure you can go to any college you want. Study anything that interests you. Her eyes brightened with sudden hope. Even veterinary school, that is really expensive. Especially veterinary school. I smiled. And if you change your mind and want to be an engineer, a teacher, or even start your own business, there will be money for that too. What about mommy and daddy? They are going to work very hard to become better parents. And if they succeed, maybe our family can heal from this hurt. But even if they do not, you and I will always have each other. She hugged me tightly, and in that embrace, I felt Ellen's presence as though 3 generations of love had refused to be destroyed by betrayal and broken trust. Can we look at college brochures? Alexa asked with shy determination. I want to see what veterinary schools look like. Absolutely, I said, reaching for my laptop. We have all the time in the world to plan your future. Outside, spring was shifting into summer, and Ellen's roses were beginning to bloom again, quiet witnesses to our resilience. As I watched my granddaughter's eyes light up, I realized the lesson these painful days had carved into me. Betrayal does not define us, but how we respond to it does. I had spent decades building a legacy of trust, only to see it tested by greed. Yet in protecting Alexa, I protected not only her future, but also the meaning of family itself. Sometimes choosing truth and boundaries means losing illusions, but it also means reclaiming freedom. I chose to protect love over loyalty to betrayal, and in that choice, I found renewal. I know many of you have faced moments where family loyalty clashed with self-respect. I invite you to share your stories, your reflections, and your lessons learned in the comments. I truly want to listen and learn from your voices. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so you will not miss the next story. And if you believe in reclaiming your worth and protecting your freedom type, choose freedom in the comments below. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you again in the next story.